Blessings and welcome, dear relations. You know what I did last week for our 4DT, 4D Trinity, is I went live on my other channel, which has 0 subscribers and which is just a landmark, a different one for me. So I apologize. There I was going live and speaking to you all yet from a different channel. So I'm grateful to be here now and return. So much has come to pass. I'm going to do my best to see if I can lift that off of Instagram and repost here on YouTube. But in the meantime, today's show is a big one. What is the real world? So I'm going to get going over here on Instagram and we will start. Blessings and welcome, everyone. I am Tuesday Mae Thomas, and this is my weekly live stream for the Trinity. Now, this week, here we go. We are submerging ourselves into the question, what is the real world? What makes the world real? What makes the world real to you? And is that different from what makes the world real to someone else? Are we living in the matrix? Are we living in a simulation? How real is your world to you? What things of the world distract you, keep you bound to the world? And is there a plane of existence beyond this world? Well, this and so many more questions and aspects we will be diving into on today's show. And as always, I'm so very grateful to be with you here on YouTube and to be with you here at Instagram. So what is real, family? Where can we agree on what is real in the world? What is the real world? And what does even real mean? What does real mean? Real, reality. And a lot of times when I share on these shows, I speak about reality with a small r, reality with a capital R, and how there is a difference, And one aspect of reality, in one aspect of reality, we are existing in what we would call the matrix, in a simulation as such, a fabrication of what the real truth is. And what is the real truth? The real truth. Can you think about it? Feel about it? In fact, don't think, just feel about it. What is the truth? Well, let that sink for a minute. Real truth and unreal truth, right? Is what was true to you then true to you now? Isn't that interesting how truth changes? How what you believed in, those belief systems that you held so near and dear for so long at points of your life, perhaps have been overturned, have been expanded, have been realized in a new way that allow you a new way of perceiving reality as you would know it. Is what is real, which we identify with the 5 senses. We are going to be reading into A Course in Miracles today. And just as a heads up, on page 75, nope, gotta put the glasses on. Nope, that's a different page. We will be reading from page 443. What is the real world? And this text is thick, it's deep, right? It is channeled material said to be the word of Christ. Reconfiguring the belief systems implemented into the rewritten works of the Bible. And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rewritten works of ancient scrolls and scriptures that have been devised and reportrayed, recalibrated, refabricated, right? With an aspect of fear at the root. And what this show intends to remind us, or to offer as a set point of reality, if you are lost along your path of spiritual growth, which does happen, but is to remember that love is the truth. That love is the truth. And how do we know, right? What is the matrix? What is a simulation? What is real in this world? Especially if you do not agree with the mainstream media, right? Then there's a sense, perhaps I'm preaching to the choir, But what is real out there is what is real in here. And outside of the layers of all things that could be fabricated and judged and polarized and made as demons and awful people and agendas, that's rooted in fear, rooted in separation, rooted in polarity consciousness. And a few things I'm going to say today, maybe I will lose some followers, I don't know, but perhaps it will just be some nuggets to expand our collective awareness, right? Which is really the intention here. This is all I'm doing is I'm guided by spirit to be here and to help myself to remember by sharing my own journey of remembering, of the realization of heaven on earth and how it is actually our birthright. And heaven on earth is a fourth dimension of consciousness residing in the tiny space of the heart. And that what I offer you, my friends, family, dear, community, and collective, that anything that is rooted from the heart, rooted in love, that is what is real. And really, love is the root of all creation. So there's love at the heart of all things and beings, no matter how awful or demonic it might appear in this matrix or through your perceptions. Remember, we are the ones that decide if it's a demon. We are the ones that give the demon the power. We are the ones that say, I'm afraid of you. And as soon as you're afraid of it, game over. You're in the matrix. So what is real? The pain of your past. Yeah, it's very, very real, isn't it? Can't it be? The trauma, the PTSD. I've worked with veterans who've been to war, not just once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, to the same destination even, over and over again, the same families, the same children who have had cousins and fathers and aunts who have died and who've been killed and da-da-da-da-da-da. And there you go, you're back, you're reincarnating, you're with these karmas, with these people. What is real? That you've been a part of bombing their whole village, or that each time you come back, you get to find a tiny space in your own heart to forgive yourself, to forgive the greater system that at play that causes or can be seen to be as the cause of these indifferences of war. You know, at the same time, what? You're following your heart, and that's real. You're following your heart to be there on the front line. So many different levels of what is real, of what we think and what we perceive as reality, and we don't all agree. Yet still, the fabric of the matrix, the fabric of our world is at play. And it's at play on behalf of us, on behalf of our perceptions of it, on behalf of how we perceive it to be, whether that be real or unreal. And what we deem as being real or true is true to us. Those are the levels that we're interfacing with. Those are the levels that we're calling in to interface with the grids that we are deciding to perceive and choose to be as real. So again, I want to read again the heart, right? What is in the heart is real. That's what we offer. So I have these amazing cards given by a dear sister, Charlotte, many, many moons ago, and they are based on the Kabbalah. And that's a realm of study that I dip in and out of. I have in no way a spokesperson for it. Yet there's such powerful wisdom. If you even are guided to open up those teachings of study and open a page, what I want to offer to you is the symbol Hesed. So it's tiny, it's up there. You may or may not glance at there for a moment, and just a little bit about it. Hesed is the domain of generosity, one of the most valued qualities in Jewish spirituality. In the Kabbalistic view, no matter how intensely we develop our capacities for knowledge, no matter how intensely we develop our capacities for knowledge and even transcendental experience, such attainment is faulty, even useless, unless it's matched with an active concern for others. Blessings, and thank you for hopping on here on Instagram and on YouTube. So did we get that? No matter how intensely we develop our, our capacities for knowledge and even transcendental experience, such attainment is faulty, even useless, unless it's matched with an active concern for others. And what is that? In the next paragraph, it goes on to speak about compassion. So all of the psychic abilities, all of the siddhis, all of the attainments that we gain that come natural, that are ours by birthright as a supernatural being with a multidimensional aptitude that is either going to be allowed to be turned on or not in this life. But what happens is along our spiritual path, we can be in a gentle way distracted by the low-hanging fruit and think that that is real. We can be distracted by the pain, by the addiction, by the memories, and think that those are real. But we know on the spiritual path, or at least we're learning, right, to integrate that wisdom that past, present, and future are an illusion and they don't really exist. So we learn to work within those constructs of considering those aspects of being just that, constructs, just that, tools, and not to be subdued by them. And so what is real? What is real? We're taught that those aspects of the senses are real: to touch, to taste, to smell, to feel, to hear, right? That everything in our senses that we can feel is real. According to quantum science, nothing is everything, and it exists as potentials until we observe it. And that it is through our own perception that a wave function collapses and a particle becomes a thing that we would choose to see. Everything is continually in flux. There is nothing set, but only your belief systems, only your perceptions at any given moment that is going to collapse wave functions in your field. And like a feedback loop, give you back what it is you are perceiving. What is real to you? What is real to the next person? Is it only real to you, that which you perceive with your senses? You know this old saying, to see it is to believe it. If I can't see it, then I don't believe it. That it needs to become manifest first in order for us to believe it could be real. And we know in that spiritual realm, we experience miraculous healings. We experience miraculous, revelations of faith and of realization of knowing thyself. Where old constructs of how we thought the world operated, of how we thought the matrix runs, collapse. And we find ourselves in a free and open source system that is rooted in love and not based in fear. And then we begin to tap into the mystic gift of trust, which is the fourth dimension of consciousness, which is your heart chakra, which is the activation of your Taurus field. And like that little reading that I just read from the Kabbalah, right, from Hesed, if we don't go through the heart, if love is not there, if compassion is not there, is it real? Is it just a body? Is it just a thing? Is it just an experience, a shell, a fabricated simulation of an experience? What if we are in a timeline split? And we've heard this many times, and thank you so much for hopping on. And I see there are comments, and I will make sure to read them. Right? This talk about the timeline shift, and there's so many different speakers speaking about so many different aspects of it. And so let's take a nugget from those ones that resonate and put the pieces together for ourselves in ways that would be real for you. But we imagine, so, and I made some notes here. I've got notes everywhere. But let's see, timeline shift. We only have to / get to agree on love leading or fear leading. And either way, you put your trust into one or the other. And that's all it is. It's very simple, this current timeline split. And it's about fear versus love. if there could be a fear versus love. But that is what the matrix, what here, this is rooted on, right? This third dimension, this binary dance of yes versus no, right versus wrong, love versus fear, war versus peace, right? And this is the dance of duality here in the matrix that keeps the tick-tock of the synthetic reality in a continuance. And as long as we think that the body is where we stop, then we will be, and pardon my French, and I say this with love and only for the reason that I am not given a different word right now, and perhaps it is for a reason, but we become a slave to the system. We become a slave to the matrix when we think the matrix is real. Yet the matrix is very real as long as we have unhealed wounds. Right? Look at the whole world. Look at history, right? And even we know the history books are fully fabricated, like the Bible. I mean, there's nuggets of truth, right? But there's like stories. It's all stories, which is what this matrix is. This matrix runs on memories. And that's another aspect of coming into the heart, of healing ourselves, of knowing thyself divine. And as you heal, right, you gotta let people off the hook. You gotta like forgive and forget. Some people are like, I will forgive, but I will not forget. Okay, fine, however you do it. But ultimately, forgiving is forgetting, because you're not walking with that pain in your aura anymore and attracting more of it to convince yourself that that is the truth in all levels of reality as you seek them, whether it's in money, relationships, family, friends, school, career, whatever it is, health, healing. And it's when we drop those stories and really to their root, best that we can. Maybe it's baby steps or big explosive healing workshop weekends. However it comes, though, to heal those grievances, like really. And you know, if you've done it or if you're in it, you know, that's the fucking, pardon my French, but that's the work. And it is not a cowardly work. It is a courageous work, because what happens is you get to override all of the functioning that you thought was real, all of the functioning that was rooted in you being a victim, in you thinking that you need to protect yourself from some demon or some person, place, or thing. And you setting up all of these layers of a certain reality that only binds, contains, and refracts and reflects and redirects, but within its own schism, more matrices, more labyrinths to be at play in, to reconfigure, to get lost in, and to validate your pain, our collective pain, right? And the world knows, yeah, hear me cry. The world is constantly crying, but that's what the world does, you see. If you were stuck in a binary system, look at your friends, look at your family, and without judgment, but just look at the systems, right, in the environment. How many people do you know? And maybe you're just with a groovy collective and people are just in it and they're on it and they're in their flow. But is there a level, or are there parts of your community where people are flipping out? Yeah. The light is coming in. I mean, the light's always here. Yet there's, where there's more solar flares, maybe more of this plasma juice circulating through the Birkeland currents, influencing the earth grids, the ley lines, moving into our food, into our consciousness, into all those levels and layers of water and everything that we put into our bodies and minds, and to the level that we are able to receive that frequency and be Rubik's cubed and recalibrated into that level of alignment with the light. We'll easily ascend as those timelines shift. And you think about a timeline, you think about like a wire just being pulled apart. And for some, as the pull apart happens, it's like, oh, ooh, get that? You feel that? You feeling that? This is cool. And for others, it's like, don't let me go! If you work with clients, did that scare you? Yeah, people are fucking afraid. People are holding on so tight to a fabricated, simulated reality of the past that is no longer, that there is very little space for them to come to terms with the reality with the large R, with the truth of love, because there is such an investment in the past and an investment into the future that the past will repeat itself. So I need to put up all of these belief systems and all of these barricades and continue projecting onto you or onto them what they did to me in the past, even though it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even if it was 2 weeks ago. We learn as light beings not to take things personally. And you know what? You take things personally when your shit is not fucking worked out. And okay, here I go again. I'm with the F-bombs. And I prayed actually this morning to have a gentler tongue, especially when I'm going to be speaking on A Course in Miracles. But yet it is what it is, right? So, but here's the point, fam. We only get tripped up by our own knickers and our own triggers, by the stuff that we have not worked out within ourselves. So if you have unhealed pain towards your mother, towards your father, towards whoever you feel messed you over, caused you trauma, abuse as a child, no matter what level or degree it was, if you don't start embarking on healing that stuff, right? Number one, you walk with that in your aura and it slowly becomes you. Have you ever seen this in people where they really don't heal their issues? And it's kind of like, oh yeah, we're all like rebels and we go through it in our 20s and stuff. And we're like, yeah, fuck you, whatever, to the system or to the mom or the parents or the whatever, the guardians. And then we start to get into our 30s and we're realizing like, one thing to keep putting the finger up at the system or to my family. Yet when you maybe start wanting to have your own family or you start circulating in greater circles and you realize, oh, the value of relationships and how family is a set point to discern and to discover and to work out your musculature of proper relationships. That is the micro of the macro of your greater experience. You begin to value and understand how potent and powerful it is for you to heal that relationship with your mother. Because you know what? Your mother is no longer that version of that self that you hate or hated. She's moved along. We'll imagine. I know in some cases it's not always that way, but we will imagine for this case. She's moved along, but here you are 20 years later and you're still pissed, angry, full of rage, full of hate even towards this person that doesn't even exist anymore. What happens is you begin to become that bitter version of that person, that entity, that thing that had caused you pain in the first place. Look around you. Do you see it? And we don't have to judge it, yet we get to pay attention because we all have this capacity. And so to come back to love, to come back to self-love. And again, you don't take things personally. You don't get tripped up by the matrix, by what the news that you don't give a flying F because it cannot touch you because you are not of this world. The teachings I share are heaven on earth. Heaven on earth is the fourth dimensional consciousness. It's the fourth dimensional realization of heaven on earth is a realization. It's a self-realization. It comes from within. The freedom, it comes from within. You're not waiting for someone on the outside to say, now you can take your thing off. Now you can go outside and play. Now you can da-da-da. No, you're like, honey, I get my rules. I get my directions from God or from source, from love, whatever name you would give that divine unifying force that is ever healing, ever present, and at the root of all beings and things. You see, but we're taught, right, to focus on the fear. And the fear is the matrix. The foundations of belief systems rooted in fear are a part of the simulation that reflects the binary system of this grid matrix of consciousness where we abide in the third dimension. And the point of the offerings on this show are to remind us of those aspects that act as little breadcrumbs in remembering our multidimensionality and that I am not just a body, that I am more than a body. I am a multidimensional being. Your multidimensional power, your supernatural powers, which is when you've taken those five senses and you begin to work with them on an awakened and a higher level, where you're not just hearing, but you're listening. And it sounds like, yeah, roll your eyes. But honey, as you sharpen your spiritual aptitudes, you realize when you're really listening, the information that is given to you, that you pick up, and then where that can lead you further down your path, oh yeah, you begin to pay attention. We're not just looking, we're really seeing. Right? The taste, right? You're tasting just beyond this, oh, it's sweet or it's salty. You're like, like you can taste the earth. You can taste the stardust. You can taste the love. Have you ever tasted the love? The smelling, the touching, right? When it's beyond just like, oh, I'm getting turned on or your skin is soft, but where there's like, human touch. For 15 years, I worked in nursing homes, in hospices, and in assisted living, skilled nursing, all those places where old folks and all people of all ages were ill, very ill, dying of all sorts of maladies. And it was my job to go in and to touch these people with love. How fucking cool is that? And yes, it made such a powerful difference, especially when you have individuals in these systems that have no loved ones visiting them. And depending on the facility, some facilities you would want to check into yourself and be okay with, and some you'd say, no, thank you. What else you got? So some of them were really kind of tucked away and really isolated. Human touch. So this is the point, my friends, is that once we tune in and we begin to meditate, right? And really like every day, not just once a month, but like meditate. If you feel that you're sucked in to fear, to the matrix, and to the distraction of your body, being constantly sick or ill, or it takes so much energy for us to be sick. It takes so much distraction when the answers are already within us to how we can support that rebalance so that that distraction is not given that time of space, so that we have a more self to be present in the moment, to be one with God, ultimately, to be in the moment and not distracted and not bound up. Your voice is immediately calming, even amongst subjects that trigger my anxiety. Oh, you know what? God bless. Thank you for hanging out. I'm not even sure I know you, sister. Oh, blessings, Anna and Mystic Artifacts and Lulu. Thank you for being here, family. I'm so grateful that you find it. And because, yeah, there are maybe some things that trigger, right? When we really get into breaking this stuff down. And I just pray that that what I share is of service to all of our collective spiritual growth and sovereignty, our freedom. We are free to choose. We are free to choose. And this is it, because once those senses, once we develop through our conscious spiritual practices, yeah, we go beyond just those mundane aspects of touch, taste, see, feel, right? And what happens, especially when we are submerging ourselves in our spiritual practices, we begin to create the divine sacred container, a sacred space for sacred powers, for chi, for life. It's just life force. It's just love. It's just love. It's a big deal, right? You get in the flow of it and you're like, this is what is real. Ask any Reiki practitioner. But that's all we're doing, is we're creating more space for life force, for love, the force of love, for chi, for prana, to channel through us. Love is the quantum organizer. In my book, How to Manifest with the Law of Vibration, that's what we preach in that book. When we get out of the way and we stop projecting those fear triggers and we stop projecting the past into the now, and we say, oh, one of the tools I teach is place love here. I place love here. Whatever it is in your mind, or you see it out there and you have a propensity to be triggered by it, to judge it, to create that separation consciousness versus just unity, just like love. Just placing love. What you do is you erase the part of you that was ready to hook in or to project, or if you've already projected that judgment, you just erase it and you place love there. The word love, the frequency, whatever you imagine love, and you just and you move on. And if it comes up, you do it again. We're rewiring the synapses, which rewires our biochemical, which rewires our adaptation to our environment, right? And in the spiritual realms, what do? We learn ultimately to master our time and space, and we give instructions to the environment. You give instructions to the matrix, not the other way around. You see, the matrix is malleable, but you've got to be so knowing that that is the truth. You can not have 1 ounce inside of you that flinches. The moment you do, then you'll be back in the matrix until you scuff your knee and you're like, okay, where did I forget that love is the truth again? Where can I be even more courageous next time that opportunity or that situation comes up, to really, with even greater grace, without forcing a will, but just stand and be in my truth. And like that movie Inception, when you stand, and I know there's lots of metaphors I'm pulling in, so just listen to my words. Because sometimes when I bring in all these metaphors, it'd be like, wait, she's saying this, but talking about that. But just that idea where, imagine if you just focus on love, on seeing the love, on being the love, what is that signaling to the matrix? The matrix is saying, okay, because we know this, the universe is just taking orders. The universe is just there like a lady at the diner. What do you want, honey? Oh, a side of Thousand Island. Okay, hold the onions. Okay, blah, blah, blah. And that's all the grid matrix is doing. Like my friend Nina, I was a singer-songwriter in Ireland for years. She wrote this amazing song, and I often quote her. I place my order in the cosmic kitchen. That's all we're doing. So what are you ordering? Again, when the 5 senses are used, is your senses bump up. They become 1. We've heard of the 6th sense, but your 5 senses they're really just 1 sense. They're broken down into 5 for the gift of us being a body, or thinking that we're a body in this 3rd dimension. Thank you for the love. I receive it. Yet when they become unified again through our spiritual practice, through our awakening of the oneness in our heart, and giving that the right of way, on purpose and consciously, over and over again. Like, this is like why I'm alive. I know when I don't do this, there may be, and not that we're doing it out of fear, but we learn, if we're paying attention, we're being honest with ourselves, there's something that we can all perhaps agree on, or where there is a sense of agreement of like, oh, when I'm a kind person, the universe treats me in kindness in return. And sometimes you're going to get a little scuff or a bump, or someone won't say thank you or won't hold the door open to you. Yet it's your response. You can take that personally or not. And again, why are you going to take it personally? Only if you have unhealed stuff that you're still holding against your mom or your dad, or something from your past that's not real, that you're bringing into the present. And so you're not in the now. And the now is the 4D. Now is the 4th dimension of consciousness. Now is where love always is. And that's the root of these teachings. So what happens? 5 senses become 1. 6th sense. What's there? What's there is your intuition, is your telepathy. And so where you already have those qualities psychically within you, which we do, and some of us come in a little more turned on than others. And sometimes we got to learn how to work the levels on our mixing board, turn down some things, turn up some things, or put it on a vitamin release. Like, okay, I'm okay with being psychic, but like not all at the same time. Just put it on a vitamin release thing. So it's like little by little by little. And you can do that. You can talk to your guides, your higher self, and you can, for the highest good, request, and it's always going to be for the highest good. And we're not trying to control things, but I'm just on the side note, I'm saying that we can have those conversations with higher self. And ultimately, that's a part of the learning as well, is like learning how to contain all of your powers. And remember, a couple shows ago, we were talking about addictions and all that stuff, and how I have clients, the empath stuff, right? When there's a lot of drugs. And I'm talking, not pot, but I'm talking like addiction, like alcohol, continual alcohol, or continual cocaine, crystal meth, right? But where that creates holes in the aura and allows in inappropriate entities and information, which distorts your ability to see love, to choose love, but also it distorts your ability to be completely sealed and unfuckable with in your aura. Boom! Containing all of your personal matrix energy, containing all of your juicy heart Taurus field energy, and letting it be, letting it carry you, being carried, which is really what you do. You begin to levitate energetically as you continue to give yourself to love, to say, love, you show me, love, you organize this situation. I'm letting go of control now. I've realized how it's actually destroying my relationships, and it's destroying my ability to hear the voice for God. It's actually become such a distraction now, my need to control people, places, things, and that I'm so pre-planning every single situation months and weeks and days before it even happens, that I'm so exhausted and so fucking stressed out over shit that has not even fucking happened yet. We learn that doesn't have to be real. We learn as we melt into trusting the mystic gift of trust, the power of love that is all knowing, that is the quantum organizer, that reorganizes things for the highest good on our behalf and for the highest good of all, not just for you. Yes, for you, but for all of us. I place love there. Let love do the reconfiguring. And it's not to say that we can't go and work in those timelines, moving in future, moving in past timelines, even though they're illusions. But here in this third dimension, there are ways we can work with them as tools for the highest good and for the highest good of all. Jennifer over here on YouTube. Hello, hope you're doing well. Thank you for this wonderful message. It's a great reminder. Namaste to you too. Thank you for joining. So let's keep going. The matrix is malleable. There's so much. I think I need to do a show on that all by itself. So what are the acts? Okay, so what is the real world? So let's start to read here a little bit from A Course in Miracles. So again, it's page 443. What is the real world? And this stuff is so thick. It's a sacred scroll. So we're not even going to go past the first paragraph. The real world is a symbol, like the rest of what perception offers. So we can imagine in this sense that the real world in this first paragraph is this idea of heaven on earth. Yet, A Course in Miracles is saying, oh, but this heaven on earth idea, this is just a symbol, like the rest of what we perceive with our eyes. Our eyes are our perceptual lenses. We see the lenses of love, or we see through the lenses of fear. Yet it stands for what is opposite to what you made. So the real world stands for what is opposite to what you made. In A Course in Miracles, what we make is that thing, are those aspects, those parts of stuff that we generate, that we make. Those aspects, those things that we create, right? If you're an artist, maybe you can, consider this, or if you're not, maybe put those goggles on and consider it. But it's when you are at one with God, with source, with creation, divinely inspired. That is creation. That is where you create. And so in the second sentence, what it's saying is yet it stands for the real world / heaven on earth. What it stands for is opposite to what you made. So there is an assumption here that what you made, where you are frustrated, where you are disappointed, where you are making things in the world, and it just continues to disappoint you, to not bring you the joy and the happiness. It's not real for you, but it seems real. It just continues to disappoint. Well, your world is seen through eyes of fear, is what A Course in Miracles is saying, and brings the witness of terror to your mind. Now, I know this is all over the place, and if you're not a Course in Miracles person, you're going, what the? We'll break it down here. The real world, right, heaven on earth, is a symbol. What is a symbol? A symbol is something that is removed from its reality, with the capital R. Like the rest of what perception offers. The real world is a symbol like the rest of what perception offers. According to A Course in Miracles, what we perceive with the physical eyes is rooted in the binary system of love versus fear. So as long as we are only seeing with these eyes, we are going to be seeing the matrix. We are going to be seeing the stories, the memories of all of our ancestors, of all of the lineages, of the news, of the traditions. We're only going to be seeing what we have been shown, and that will be our scope. So we learn to perceive. We learn Where's my notes? Okay. There's a different aspect though. There's the third eye and the heart that become activated, right? As we awaken to love, as we forgive ourselves and others. And remember, forgiveness minuses time. Past, present, future, they all disappear when you forgive. You open yourself to the vortex of now that always is. And now is the place of miracles. Now is the place where divine happenstance, where love is actually given the right of way, where you're out of the way and where miracles can happen. Exactly like how as we are Reiki facilitators, it's not about us healing the individual. We hold space. We are a sacred container, allowing that life force to channel through us. But it is that life force. It is that divine presence of that life force, ultimately, that acts as the facilitator, that reawakens the memory of the individual receiving the Reiki, of the memory within their body that says, oh, I know how to heal myself. I just forgot because I had experienced a lot of pain. And I've been focusing on that pain for these last 7 years, 17 years, 70 years. My perception has rested there instead of using my heart and my third eye to see through the veils of illusion and to remember that the truth is that I'm already healed. Whatever it is never even happened. And how can I make that so? By forgiving myself and them, others. It's a different, this is heaven on earth. This is third dimension. This is fourth dimensional consciousness vision. Now, it's not to use one without the other. We learn how to combine them. We learn how to activate them. Right? So if you watch the show, the beginning of 2020, I did a show. I'll come back and I'll put the link on YouTube. 2020 vision. It's about having both sets of eyes turned on. And this ultimately, the real world, this is about you having all of your colors turned on, you being and embodying all those versions of yourself at the same time. We talked about this on last week's show. Where this is the real world is you being fully turned on and not just being one version of yourself, but learning the dance of allowing the integration of all of those parts of yourself to have a seat at the table, to have a turn at holding the talking stick, to hold the microphone and to say those few words, or to give it a body and to let it express itself in its way. Your world is seen through eyes of fear and brings the witnesses of terror to your mind. So your world is seen through eyes of fear. Why? Because we're taught. We're just taught that. As a child, I mean, I even remember I went to school as a young child before I moved to Ireland. I grew up there then later. But as a younger child, I grew up in LA. And I was born in 72. And so going to school here up until 85, 86 or so, we had continual nuclear bomb drills. And you hear that and it's like drop, you get under your desk, you cover it's kind of like what I don't know if they still teach it, right? It's been a minute since I've been in school. You get under your desk and you cover your head and good luck, that nuclear bomb. But can you imagine? This is how we grew up. What are the kids these days growing up with now? What are their, my God, right? They got guns in the school. They got like locked down the doors. The teachers are, part of me, I'm laughing and I know how that can be perceived as being inappropriate. It's not intended to be. So just please know that. It's just so ridiculous is my point. That's the world. Is that real? Is that real? I ask you, is that real? Yes, it's real in the Matrix. Beyond the Matrix? No, it's not. It's not. All the wars, all the famine, all the greed, control, polarity, driven, even this current thing that's happening in the world, I know people have died. I know it. People are always dying. This is what we do. We come here to be born and to be died. To be died. Yes, to be died. To die. We come here for these cycles. And there's no, I know one or two of you are like, okay, some of things here are a little triggering, but there's some things that are, also resonating. So I offer this with love, and I have no agenda at all. I really have no mind about what you do with your life. I'm free. I don't need to control you. I don't leave here and think like, oh, I wonder if it's divinely guided what I share. And so please take from it what serves you. But look at the world in this since 2019, 2020, and everything that's happened on a global scale. And look at the division. There's a lot of, some people don't think any of it's real at all, myself included, by the way. And I know I've lost followers, and I don't have to judge it, and I don't have to make me wrong and other people right or whatever. It's just that from the beginning of this whole shenanigan, what spoke to me? My intuition. When everyone was like, we need to do this thing and wear these things, my intuition was like, no, you don't. It didn't have to judge or or make a reason or defend anything. It was just like, no, that's not true, actually, for me. If that's true for you, so be it. And this has been a real crux, though, right? So let's think about this timeline shift moving forward. I have friends where they don't want to get the thing. Okay, let's just back up. Even looking at the thing before the thing, but remember the thing, the big thing, the news, the media, and what's even happening, which I don't even have a TV. I haven't watched the news, but I post memes in my stories. So, and I look at other memes, and so it's through the memery that you're like, oh, Dr. F, what? Anyway, let's not get distracted. I'm talking to myself. Let me not get distracted. The point is that this whole world has been going through this media and this onslaught of this information about this thing, IRUS. And some people, I say this with love, drink the Kool-Aid, and others are just like, that just doesn't feel real to me. It doesn't feel real to me. And it doesn't feel real to me at all. And there's many others, and for others, it does. And all good. But this is what I'm saying, is that remember at the very beginning of the show, it's like what's real and how all of these different belief systems, how all of these different, we can all believe in different gods and in different realities, yet we are coexisting. And isn't that just a beautiful miracle that that there's such a myriad and a distinctive potential for so many different variables and vibrations and frequencies that we are learning to be and embody. And as we continue to learn to be and embody these aspects, what we will see is that further of that timeline shift, where those that are really stuck on needing to fix the world, to save the world, and to fix themselves, right? Because then there's that, because after that first V, then we had the second V of this thing, right? And so who is guided to do that? No judgment. But also there's those that are not guided to do that, no judgment. And yet we are all coexisting and in our own realities. Some people where that is not real for them, they have had zero experiences that are reflected in the media, that we're told we should be having experiences like this because this is what's happening in the world and it's real. And you're susceptible. We're all susceptible unless you meditate. I mean, that's really the key, and it's free. You being a master of your own mind is so key to mastering the matrix. But even more important is you loving yourself. That's the real juice right there. Because when you can love yourself, when you've learned how to love yourself, know thyself, then you can love your sister, your brother, this planet. And there's a different dimension of experience. It's in the heart, and that's heaven on earth, where it knows that love is the quantum organizer, again, continually realigning the most high for the highest good of all. And that happens when we get out of the way. and we say, I place love here, or whatever it is, in all the ways that that is in resonance for you, in the way that you imagine that, how that cycles through your life and your experience. And yes, we can be a channel for that love. And yes, we will be guided at times to be literally physically like, put this there, go take this crystal, dig it, put it in the ground on that mountain and do on this ley line. Or, there's magical, mystical, and there's everyday practical things. But the point is that there's two very different realities going on right now. And it's this thing that's happened. This is a big part of this timeline shift that is happening and that is undergoing currently. And really, you look around and it's basically, it's like, it's two buckets. The people who are like, woo, who feel like the last year or two have been like, woo, my inner artist has had space and time to come out. I'm so grateful for my unemployment because like it was able to support me and my whole family has been healthy. And I'm so grateful for that. And it's really giving me time and space to like really get, into a certain level of focusing on my career or like really just what I want to do creatively. And like, I'm so grateful. And then you have people where it's like, whoa, I've been working frontline in the hospitals and I've seen people die and there's like death and it's awful and it's horrible and all this stuff and wow, and lots of PPE equipment and all this and like, and it's very different realities and not one is better than the other. It's just we get to choose which one we are in. And the choosing, though, you see, can be distorted when you walk with unhealed grievances within you. Because when we walk with unhealed grievances within us, the tar body, the shadow aspect of self, is always going to have the louder voice. And if your will in your spiritual self is not strong enough, if your light body, if the will of your light body is not calibrated to fucking stand up to the bully of the tar body, the bully of your own shadow, if you can't even stand up to that yourself, then how are you going to stand up in your own truth to what the world, the matrix, is telling you? Easier to cower and to just go along with it and to live in fear. I say all this with love, and I place love where there may be any barbs or polarity. Okay, back to A Course in Miracles. The real world cannot be divided. The real world, right? So if there is a heaven on earth, it cannot be divided. It is not as this matrix is. It is not like, oh, good and bad people. It cannot be perceived except through eyes forgiveness blesses. So they see a world where terror is impossible, right? Those that see with eyes of love, I mean, preach to me now. Do you see a world of terror? When you turn on the news or when you look at what people, look at the awful destruction. The real world cannot be perceived divided except through eyes forgiveness blesses, unity, unifying force. So they see, those who perceive with the eyes of love, the eyes that bless, perceive a world where terror is impossible. Why is terror impossible? Because you've learned that it is an illusion, because you've learned to rattle out your inner tar body, your inner shadow that would manipulate, seduce, and deceive you into thinking that hate, that fear, that division, that greed, that control, even on those really subtle levels. It doesn't have to be like you own a corporation and you're like, killing the poor people of the community. No, these are like the subtle things that drive us in every day out of fear of scarcity or whatever it might be. But then we remember that love is the truth. We remember to forgive ourselves. We remember to forgive others. Then all of a sudden time disappears. And the illusion of those constructs that would keep us bound, they dissolve. And suddenly here we are, we're free in the now. And we get to make a new choice. I can choose to see things differently now that I'm in the now. And even if it's that split second, it's like, oh, let me choose love. Boom. Now, completely different timeline. Completely different timeline. Now you're blessing. Now you're forgiving. Now you are the saint. Right? Instead of the victim. One more time. The real world cannot be perceived except through eyes forgiveness blesses. So they see a world where terror is impossible and witnesses to fear cannot be found. Witnesses to fear cannot be found. Witnesses to fear cannot be found. In my family, in my community, it's like even when all this stuff started happening in 2019, 2020, we were not posting about it. It wasn't real to us. And maybe 6 months in, 7, 8, 9 months in, someone in the team was like, oh man, the people at my work got this job or got this letter, and now we all have to wear this thing until the whatever says whatever. Or like, yeah, dude, yeah, we got one of those too, whatever, blah, blah. Oh, well, it's the Matrix. Continue. Don't have to judge it. Don't have to like post a million things about it or whatever. It's just like, okay, continue. It's not real to me, but I understand that this is happening in this Matrix. And I understand that the grocery store is not going to let me in unless I do this. So there's a level of like, okay, maybe there's some people I know who have a farm and I can get some free food and I don't have to wear the thing. You know, there's whatever, you can work it out. But there's also folks, and I offer to you to be very mindful, family that are very awakened, but that are also doing the fight the system thing, because it's one thing to hold space. And now I am not judging. We all have our path. Do you? I tell people to fuck off all the time. You can tell my energy. You can tell me to fuck off too. I have no mind about it. I am just here to share. Being super mindful, right? There's a very fine line, a difference between showing the Matrix to others and saying like, wow, look at this information, right? Versus showing the Matrix to others and saying like, this is real. Look what they're doing to us. You should be afraid, or you should be pissed, or you should be angry. It's a big difference. It's subtle, but there's a difference. One perpetuates the Matrix. Okay. So if you're continually, and again, I say this with love, but if you're continually posting about the chemtrails and you're pointing them out everywhere you go, well, that's just reinforcing them in your reality. And for everyone in agreement with you who likes that post or who's in that timeline, that's just validating it. And it's just saying, more, please, more chemtrails, so I could take more pictures and post them and validate this aspect of the government or this thing that's fucked up. And that's fine. And I'm not judging it again, but just realizing there will be a certain point where the way that we share maybe begins to change, or even just from the set point of view where it's coming from energetically and how it's shared will change. Because you realize that this Matrix, there's nothing to save here. This is what the Matrix does. Yet, by understanding, knowing, and educating ourselves on how the Matrix does what it does, we can be better prepared to make a more holistic choice. And especially where meditation is not your strong point, then you've really just got your mind. I'm saying this kind of sassy, but it's like, you better be good with your own mind. If your mind is all you got and you don't meditate and you don't have no connection to spirit, then your mind better have your back. And if your mind and if the mind is having your back, is saying like, live in fear, we're all going to die, there's scarcity, get a gun because your neighbor could turn on you or whatever. I mean, that's a timeline. That's a certain level of reality. Is that the real world? That's not my real world. Timeline split, fear versus love. Which one are you on? Which one are you on? Which grid are you surfing? Which timeline are you surfing? And within each timeline structure, there's an infinite amount of timelines within them, but they're being broken down. What is real? What is not real? And forgiveness, my friends, is our healing power. Oh my God, we're still on? This is incredible. I think it's over an hour. Somehow the live is still going. I still have notes. I might come back and do more. Thank you so much, everyone, for hopping on. Back in the day, the lives used to only be 1 hour and then they would cut. And then during the last year, all that stuff, you could do like a 3-hour live. And then now this year, it's back to 1 hour, but somehow it's still, thank you for the love, everyone. It's still on. So what I want to say, just in case it shuts off, is I have more notes. But also that if you're interested in what I share, Subscribe on YouTube. All of my links are at the link tree, at the Instagram. I'm not very good at it recently, but I do have a monthly love letter that I do have intentions from my heart to send out very regularly for our community. So if there's other things that I share that you're interested, I have books, I have stuff upcoming. I'm writing a screenplay for a kick-ass movie. Oh my God, it's turning into being such an amazing adventure called Grid Mind Science. I have a different page. I have loads of pages. I'm going to keep going though, but I'm just offering that if you're ready to wrap up and if it's been an hour and you've hung out and you're like, good, but I'm going to keep going while this thing still records. Okay. So thank you. And I really appreciate and I love these communities. I really, really do. Oh no, here it goes. It's ending. Interesting. Okay. Just as I was going in, I wonder, should I come back? Anyway, I'm so very grateful for you. So thank you, family. Blessings and love. Okay, here on YouTube, let's see, what do I do? See, I got to share this right away. Okay, hang out with me here a second, YouTube family. Let's see if we can do this in a timely way that allows us to do it all. I love doing it all. I love the thought and I love the idea of doing it all. And it's interesting because there's that aspect of it where it is a welcome, you know, where we're sort of taught, like, on one hand to only be one thing when we grow up, and then later to like, do it all, little Tommy. And to find that divine balance within ourselves so we don't burn out and freak out as we learn to utilize our multidimensional capabilities, which is really what it is when we are being it, doing it all. We're saying yes to all of those parts of ourselves that are seeking a voice, that are seeking a body, that are seeking that template of expression. And we're allowing, we're allowing. So let me I feel like I'm supposed to keep going and even just do a short for this, even though I'm soaking. You know, it's 100 and something crazy degrees out here. And it's pretty hot. I'm sweating from head to toe. So let me see. Let me just get this going. Okay. Okay. Thank you, YouTube family. You are all so patient. It's a different grid, right? YouTube than Insta. Insta is definitely like instant gratification, right? Things happening instantly. Whereas here on YouTube, I think we kind of hang out and maybe do the dishes or do some stuff around the house while we're listening often. I find a lot of folks share with me that they listen, you know, that they'll just put on these live streams and they'll just listen and do stuff around the house. And I'm deeply honored by that, to just be a voice in your ear from time to time that can share these messages that I really feel guided with all of my heart to be present with and to share with the community. It is a natural extension of I feel what I'm called to do and to be. So I'm very grateful if you're called to do you and be here with me while I'm doing and being me. Okay. So that has posted. So we're going to go back in and we're going to, oh, that's beautiful. Okay, let's see. So thank you for hanging out. And I appreciate your patience as always, family, and all of these technological little bits and bobs that get to go. Okay. So now, mic check. Mic check. Okay. All right. So blessings, family. This is a little part 2 from part 1 of today's live stream for 4D Trinity. Again, I'm Tuesday May Thomas. I didn't get through all of my notes in part one, and I feel deeply guided to continue and to finish with them. And this week's show is called What is the Real World? And if it is of any interest to you at all, I invite you to just scroll to the next video, which is part one of this video, What is the Real World? And the reason why I wanted to come back is because there are these really specific notes that I had made and that help to really ground this idea of what is real for you may not be real for others. And we think about addiction, right? We think about even those simple ways that our realities can overlay and interconnect with one another, yet where we can have completely different realities, right? Two people or, two groups of people go into a bar, and one group of people, right, are non-drinkers and the other group are drinkers. And maybe there's a percentage in between both of those groups that have been alcoholics and they're on that path of sobriety. Now, when we go into the bar, we don't know until everyone orders, or maybe unless we have a conversation about it, but who's doing what? Like, are you partying? Are you having fun? Are you drinking a bunch of beers? Like, no problem? Or are you like, don't even let me into a bar, or it's too tempting, or I have learned I can go into a bar and I have a certain willpower, and if I'm with the right environment, I can order a non-alcoholic drink or something and be there with my friends and enjoy the social time. But meanwhile, for someone else, it is absolute hell. And for another person, it is absolute heaven, right? You go into a restaurant, the waiter seats you by the bathroom at the back of the restaurant. For one person that needs to use the loo a lot, that's a gift. That's like, oh, thank God they put me back here. For another person, it could be like, I don't want to sit next to the bathroom when I eat. I want to move somewhere else. It's all different, right? What about pain from the past, right? We all have different ways to perceive what is real to us, what makes this present reality or not. And ultimately, what we're speaking about in coming into the real world is a level of truth, is a level of all that is unifying, all that is seeing, being, embodying love, that is the heart of what is real, what is real for any construct in this universe, where love abides freely and is given the right of way freely. That is real with a capital R. That's what is on offer here. And so anything that causes a distraction to you relaxing in the peace that you are is unreal. The past is unreal. The future is unreal. The present is just a gateway to the now. We're getting closer, but it's still just a gateway to the now. It's very interesting. I spoke with someone last night, and they had a revelation about how they realized they were gluten intolerant, and how this deep realization and a change in their diet in only 3 days has allowed them a full realization of their multidimensionality. And they've realized how distracted they have been by having to deal with these digestive issues ongoing for years and years and years and years and years. And how much time and attention that really takes away from you being present in the now moment, in the splendor and the simplicity of the miraculous abiding as a constant, when we are continually suspended and bound up with ailments and issues in our body. According to A Course in Miracles, we are not a body. I want to find that for us, if I may. And it's really powerful when we come into that level of awareness that we are not a body. And it is actually, on one hand, can be quite challenging to consider, quite frightening, because we are brought up with such a physical, a third dimensional body reality realization of that this is what is real, that when we start to access our multidimensionality, the physical body, there's a level of letting it go. There's a level of relinquishing the sort of relinquishing the power you gave it on one hand for it being so real, releases you into and releases the body into actually its supernatural powers. It's like you get to give up that which you were told was real that you realize is not real, in exchange for something that is actually much more real, which is you with all of your supernatural powers turned on and calibrated on a multidimensional level. And you multidimensionally being awakened and activated, connected in the now moment, clear, clean, free from the past, from the memories that create the future, and to such a degree that love is given the right of way, and that you forget you are a body, and that you know that you are love, and love as the common denominator and quantum organizer is actually the unifying force and power that elevates you beyond this matrix, that is the portal through which you access the gifts and the tools that you would bring and be and share in this world as this version of yourself, as this turned on supernatural version of yourself. Interesting. It's always just so interesting. It's getting very warm. Here it is. I am not a body, I am free. Page 382, and I believe it's lesson 199. Let's see here. I am not a body, I am free. Lesson 199, freedom must be impossible as long as you perceive a body as yourself. The body is a limit. Who would seek for freedom in a body looks for it where it cannot be found. The mind can be made free when it no longer sees itself as in a body, firmly tied to it and sheltered by its presence. If this were the truth, the mind were vulnerable indeed, right? If you were just a body. If you were just a body. I did mark this page earlier as well, the end of sickness in the workbook, page 187. Because speaking about my friends, that gluten intolerance and how for years this was just such a great distraction for them and really kept them away from living in joy, because there was this constant thing that they had to deal with. But meanwhile, the answer was already there, right? Just cut this out of your diet, which they had gotten downloads of several times, but it's one thing to really then put those markers into place and begin to live them. Sickness is a great distraction, and sickness validates the body. And look at this, what's been happening in this last year or so all over the world. This sickness, this validation of the third dimension, this really strengthening of a body consciousness, which, yes, we honor. We honor the physical body. We love the body. Yet we realize we are not this body. We realize we are so much more than that. Yet sickness, illness, ailments, all of these things, they keep us bound to the body consciousness in a very limited way. That keeps us away from the further potentials of activating different levels of ascension, where different levels and dimensions of yourself exist, where you have very different experiences that are not rooted in the fear versus love binary system of this grid matrix. The end of sickness. All magic, which is what A Course in Miracles speaks of when they talk about medications and injections and just all that sort of stuff, pills and in general. All magic is an attempt at reconciling the irreconcilable. All religion is the recognition that the irreconcilable cannot be reconciled. Sickness and perfection are irreconcilable. If God created you perfect, you are perfect. So the premise of this speaks to, again, sickness is an illusion. And according to A Course in Miracles, the only way that sickness can abide is where the mind has been separated from God, is where there's a perception of separation consciousness. And the moment we reconnect with unity consciousness with God as truth, with love as truth, instant healing, instant unification, instant remembering of what the real world is, of what the real world is. And the real world is, what I will offer is you at your multidimensional maximal potential and power. That means every part and parcel of you and all the divine sacred spaces in between all the parts of you that you think are you, attuned to love. Right? When we're attuned to love, to that frequency, and we give love the right of way through us to channel through our actions, words, our thoughts, our creations, when we consciously choose to abide with love in unison, we give love the right of way. And the miraculous then becomes an everyday occurrence. According to A Course in Miracles, where miracles are not happening, it's actually odd. And according to A Course in Miracles, miracles are your nature, actually, to be in the presence of them and for them to abide in your presence as a continuum. And when they are not, that's when we get to go back in and recognize where it is that we can choose again our thoughts, our actions, our words in greater alignment with love. Where it is we can forgive and drop judgment, because that's all that's creating those muddy lenses. And our inability to see love are the lenses of the past, the lenses of the future, the lenses of stories, of memories that perhaps maybe belong to us through our own experience, but that possibly don't even belong to us, and that we've just unconsciously taken and are looking through. And so how does that serve us? Is it real for us? What is real? And now ultimately, sure, I can sit here and preach and tell you XYZ about what is real. You decide in the end. We decide what is real for us. But isn't it interesting how belief systems change? How what was real for you, if you're on a spiritual path as well, right? Things change. What was real for you at a certain point, and for so long, perhaps, until you bump into a realization or you have a healing, and then you're like, whoa, that thing, that's not my truth anymore. That used to be my truth, and that's not my truth anymore. Personally, I used to be afraid of chemtrails. I'm not afraid of them anymore. It's not my truth. That's not real to me anymore. It's a part of the matrix. It's a part of the matrix. What is real to you? What is not real to you? Where do you give your time and attention? Remember, everything we give our time and attention to is just amplifying it, is giving it the right of way to increase in its spectrum. And we are in agreement with it. And so we are saying, yes, please, more of that. And it's learning to use our perceptual lenses of the eyes and how we view and perceive the world around us and the world inside of our own heads, our own thoughts, how we judge our own thoughts, how we reflect upon our own selves that help to create those building blocks that are either going to ground us in the unifying power of love, in the pixelation of the simulation dissolving and vanishing, so that what is left is the truth of love in ourselves, in our brothers and sisters, in our environments? Or are we going to uphold belief patterns and structures that continue the root of fear, that perpetuate a simulation that holds those values, that reflects them back to us, and that continues to regurgitate those actions and those acts as validated by media, by the news, by whatever it is, to say, you see, this is real. Many of us look at the same thing and see it differently. Many people can interpret the Bible and see things differently. And how we see generates our experience. How we see what we look at informs what we look at of how to act on behalf of us. I mean, really, let's go back to the restaurant at the beginning. You and your friend go into the restaurant or into the movie theater. We'll go to the restaurant. The waiter comes up. Instantly, you're just like, there's something weird about that person. Da, 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 da. And then you start judging it. You start having all these thoughts about this waiter, this person, and they're like a little snipey with you. Maybe they're a little short, or there was a miscommunication, or something, or they didn't bring your salad dressing, and there's like a thing. And then you start a string. Here you go. You start a novella. You start weaving a grid about this person. You have a certain experience that is maybe like a little frazzled, got a little polarity around there. Meanwhile, your friend sitting across from you, they're laughing, they're cracking a joke with the waiter. They're like, the waiter brought them an extra lemon for their water, but they forgot your water, or this is just crisscross continually in this world. We are all at once independently and collectively communicating with all that is within and that with all that is around us. Now, I don't even have to say anything to that waiter to perhaps inspire the action that would create some polarity. It doesn't even, we don't have to judge it. It just could be a different experience. And we've all had, to a certain degree, experiences like that at least enough so you can say, okay, I understand what she's saying. Right? Now, these agreements, where we agree, there's a set point. We all share a common denominator, right? And it's the heart. So even if we disagree about beliefs about God, there's an atheist. I mean, we know the joke, right? The Muslim, the Catholic, the Protestant, or whatever walk into a bar, right? But it's like, so there's all of these different denominations and all these different belief systems. Yet we exist, abiding with one another here. And it all works. Somehow it's all working. I know there's wars and there's all that stuff, but I mean, somehow like we're all here. And there's a lot of us believing a lot of different things. When you think about God, the word God, all the definitions, that's a huge grid. And all the different aspects included and woven into that. And how varying and different they are, and how each one of them would say, mine is the real belief system. Mine is what's real. How can they all be real? How can they all be real at the same time when they're all so different? You know, my teacher back in the day, if you're interested in my journey, I have a book I wrote called The Reiki Apprentice. It's on Kobo in Canada. It's on Kindle and paperback at Amazon. And I believe this is in the book at some point, but she was a trance channel and a Reiki grandmaster. And I used to sit with her every week with a small group and take notes on her channeling in the group. And she said one time, you know, it's only by agreement that subways work. This was when I lived in Brooklyn, in New York. And you know, unless you have a car and you're doing New York life on that level, I mean, we're all just hustling and walking and taking subways from A to B to C to D. And she brought to our awareness like this collective conscious agreement that these subways are, this is a safe means to get from A to B, to be miles and miles underground, to travel miles and miles from one destination to another. And that we have a collective agreement where we're saying, you know what? Yes, I believe that this can work. Yes, I believe that this is safe. Yes, I'm going to use this to get to work or to take the kids to school or whatnot. There's a collective agreement. If we didn't agree on that, right, we would not, the subways wouldn't work. This is the point, is that the matrix, the things within this realm require your agreement for them to work. Now, sometimes things work without your agreement as well. You could say, you know, no, the subway is a really dangerous thing and I don't agree that it's safe. But meanwhile, oh my gosh, there's an emergency. The only way you can get there is by subway. You take the subway and nothing happens. You get from A to B and it's fine. It's like there's all of these conflicting aspects, yet bringing it back to that level of awareness of just that basic level of agreement. What are we agreeing on? And in part 2, right, we speak about the timeline split that's happening. I'm sorry, in part 1 of this video, what is the real world? And how it's basically the timeline split on these levels of consciousness of what is fear-based consciousness and what is based in love. And that is ultimately where the split is happening. It's love versus fear. It's the literal matrix, because that's all that this is, this binary system in the grid matrix. But it's literally unbinding and unwinding itself, because it is finally to a point where there's enough inhabitants here on this planet that are breaking away from things as they have been done for a very, very, very long time. Enough to the point where there's enough of a disagreement now of like, yeah, the majority, that even if it was like 80-90% agreement to make things look like a certain way in the matrix, to appear the sky is blue, the clouds do this, cars can run on gas, and whatever all these things are that we agree on, or that there's this deadly thing and that we all need a thing that's another thing. The timelines are, there's no, we're not agreeing. We're not in agreement. And you don't even have to be a conspiracy theorist. You don't even have to be a spiritual person to recognize that people are like going, with this current global thing that's been happening. People are like going, you're either like in it or you're not, basically, is what's happening. Where there was even like a middle thing, that middle thing is disappearing. Where you're like, well, I kind of think there is a thing, but I think there's not. And it's like, no, it's really starting to like separate, which is ironic, because usually we're talking all about unification, right? And unifying aspects on this show. Yet there's this aspect of this separation that's happening now in the matrix. There's these timeline splits. Those that are living in fear and believing the stories that the matrix holds, and those that are honoring their intuition and generating a different story, one that is happening moment by moment in the now, not something that has been preconceived by the past, or that is rooted and created and generated from fear as a simulation that this matrix is, but that is something that is beyond this matrix, that abides in the now moment, that is an interdimensional gap. It is an interdimensional space station that is within your heart, this tiny space in your heart. And it is the now moment. And it is only from that aspect that we are free of the polarizing aspects of this matrix. And the true freedom is to not judge it, right? Is to be in the world and not of it. And to be free in the world and to not judge it and to be not of it is to not judge it. Is to know that it is just a matrix. But again, as I spoke of in part 1, that's already up at the page from earlier, it is when we've healed those constructs that create the polarity consciousness within us in the first place. It is through healing our lives. That's the key. That's the gift to your ascension. Because then you forgive, you forget, you release all that anguish and that pain and that anger or that victim or that shame or that all those stuff that's just so matrix. But this is what this place does. This is why we're here. This is what we work out. But we're also here to remember that we're not that body, that we're not the past, that we're not those experiences. And as we accumulate enough merit in our spiritual practices, just being sincere when we show up and doing your best to be present, that's all that is. But you generate, right, your spiritual will and your spiritual capabilities and adaptabilities to realms and expressions that are beyond what we've been taught and what we've learned through the media, through traditions, through religions, through this matrix, through memories, through the Akashic records. And we come into a now moment reality and realization that is in that tiny space of the heart. Where all time stops. You stop aging. You stop counting. Synchronicity abides, happenstance abides, things begin to flow for you in greater and greater harmony. And the universe, higher self, all those divine light powers that be, that are you, simply getting out of the way and letting love have the right of way. You're allowing that greater harmonic to orchestrate the patterning and the flows of your life. It doesn't mean you may not have your own preferences. I prefer to play tennis on a Monday than a Tuesday, actually, universe. Place your order in the cosmic kitchen, and for the highest good, right? Universe is going to deliver. But the point is that it's a very, very different level of experience. Living in love versus living in fear. And so those other things that we have agreement in this matrix on, when someone gets sick, we take them to the doctor, we take them to the hospital. And blessings, thank you for hopping on. This is part 2. I already recorded part 1, but I was so deeply guided to come on and to finish my notes. So I'm here at YouTube and on Instagram. So thank you for hopping on. Right, but there's these very set ways, and I spoke about this in last week's live as well, that the matrix is the binary system, and it really gives us very, very little choices. Love or fear, right? Life or death. Like, you're going to be cremated or buried, and yes, there's other variables, but for the most part in the status quo, in the TikTok, what I call it, in the matrix, right? We have very few choices that we can make. But it's only because we have few choices to make when we're listening to something and someone tell us that we only have 2 choices to make. But again, that's why we always offer know thyself, meditate, turn the TV off, turn your phone off, go meditate, go hug a tree, go, detox, do those things that are going to help to clear you, especially forgive those that have hurt you in the past. That's the main thing that keeps us in fear, keeps us in anger, keeps the perpetuation of this matrix as a real thing. Right? It takes a lot. It can, especially if you've been hurt deeply, to forgive and to forget, to release. But there's your freedom. There's the now moment. There's the gateway. There's the portal. There's that 0 point. That's the tiny space in your heart. That's the 4th dimension of consciousness where you're free. Because remember, as long as you have unforgiven stuff, you're walking with those constructs in your aura. And you're just going to continue to unconsciously, subconsciously cast out that memory that is no longer real, that is of the past. You're going to cast it out into the grid matrix, which is going to pipe down into you, feed forward feedback loop, the simulation as you would have it here in this matrix in the 3rd dimension. And I call the 3rd dimension the matrix because that's what it is. It is not real. And what I offer to you in these teachings is that what is real in the matrix is that is rooted in love. And beyond the matrix is all that is rooted in love. And that if it is not rooted in love, not stemming from love, that it is a synthetic fabrication of what is the truth. And so again, in the matrix, right? We all just funnel in. You all go to school. We all, get sick. You go to the hospital, the doctor, you die. You go to the hospital, the doctor, you're going to be born. You go to the hospital, the doctor. It's like and that's a very rudimentary, basic aspect, right? To reflect on. And just to even be like, you're a freak, right? If you you have a home birth, or you have you have a death doula come in to help, a shaman to help come in and support your passing from one dimension to the next, or you have, you homeschool your kids. I mean, now granted, in this last year of everything that's happened, that is way more acceptable of a notion, right? So that's a very interesting thing that's shifting. What I'm saying is that this matrix offers us very little choices. And a lot of that which is rooted in fear is the root of where the choice comes from, where you have to choose one or the other. And why can't we have what is just love and only love? And what I offer is that we can, and we are remembering. And that is what I call trinary. That is a new set of grids. That is a new set of synapses. That is a new set of sensitivities and of your senses, which are telepathic and intuitive, not just the basic 5, but all those 5 combined into the sacred 6 and 7. Your ability to intuit the truth in your heart, and your telepathic ability to know without even having to DM or message or email or write a letter, but to know that those in resonance with you share that same truth. It's just a knowing. You're intuitive. You're telepathic with your family, with your brothers and sisters, your communities. You all just know. You don't have to post about it. You don't have to validate or defend anything. There's just a shared knowing. But how do you know? You know that from knowing thyself and from trusting yourself. And again, meditate, meditate, meditate. That is the freest, most powerful tool that we have for starters. And it's very accessible. You just have to sincerely discipline yourself to show up, and have one or two tools, one or two means to get you started. But it's your sincereness in showing up that opens a way to what is real. Synthetic layers of our physicality through the five senses. Again, we're taught if you can see it, you can believe it. If you can see it, it's real, right? And us empaths, us intuitives, and we're like, honey, I know it's real, and I don't, and you're never going to see it because it's in a different dimension. There's these different aspects like that, where if you're an empath and you're sensitive and you're psychic, you're intuitive, you have a different categorization. You have a different vocabulary. You have a different way of seeing things, of intuiting things in this world. And you come to realize when you bump into and you begin to align with your intuition and your telepathic abilities and your psychic abilities, and you really harness them and you own them and you contain them and you start to work with them with honor as a shaman, as a Jedi, just as a spiritual, student with a certain amount of, again, discipline and consciousness and humility. Well, those tools they give you, they start to gift you awakenings and awarenesses that you do not get from reading even the whole encyclopedia of all the Indian Vedic texts, all the encyclopedia of all the ancient teaching scrolls. I mean, we're getting closer in those. We're immersing ourselves in those frequencies into what is, the deeper truth, that where love abides, the unifying force of all factors. Yet it is your own experience of exercising that musculature with yourself first and foremost. That's the master. And we're all that. We all have the capacity to do that. That is your ability to be the Jedi, to be the shaman, to be the spiritual aspirant that you would want to follow, that you would like their memes, or that you would like, oh shit, what they're saying. Because they're speaking the truth, right? It's not fluffy. There's no judging it. There's different levels, right? There's we are constantly breaking through the clouds, breaking through the veils, even teachers breaking through the veils, coming into that deepening realization of truth, which is love. And so what is real in your world? What we offer is that which is rooted in love is real. So again, where do these agreements, right? The agreements we have about the world that create the matrix, that create the simulation, where do they stem from? Where do these truths stem from? Now, some of them are experience. Some of them you're like, no, that happened to me as a child. So I believe that is real for me. I have friends, I grew up in Ireland, and I have friends that you can't even say the word God, and they just have such a hardcore knee-jerk reaction. And they're like, don't fucking talk to me about God, right? But you can talk about Jesus for days. But there's something in them that it had been so literally beaten violently into them that that God is this power to be feared, and all that, just this stuff that they just have such a violent reaction to it that it's not real for them, right? So it's very interesting, these overlays of what is real and not real. And so for you, an atheist and a Christian can be sitting next to each other. They do not have to have the same agreements on belief systems of how the world started, of a big bang, or of a whatever, or, whatever. Yet spiritually, where we do meet family is where we recognize love. And that's the crux of what I'm offering here, that love is the truth. And where you choose to perceive love, where you embody love, where you experience love, where you bring love, where you taste love, where you touch love, where you feel love, that's the truth. That's the now moment. And the truth is in the now, which cannot be contained by a title such as the past, the present, or the future. Because the now is a continuation of a sacred order that does not begin and does not end, but that just is. And there's a certain loosening of our own belief system that is required in order for us to relax into that spaciousness that is beyond the constructs of this matrix. It's a very safe place, the matrix, even though we might be like, fuck the government, and Fauci, or whatever your thing is, right? Flat earth, round earth, how can there be all these different earths? And here we are. And yet we're all coexisting. I don't know. I tell my friends, I just see shapes. And for me, it's not, I have no mind about it. For me, I zoom out and I see like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I see it as subsets of grids of like, oh, okay, oh, we're back. Remember, because there was a point where the world was flat. And then wasn't it the story we learned in the history books, Christopher Columbus, he took off and he's like, whoa, actually, I did not fall off the edge of the earth. There's actually some spherical energy going on here. And now we've doubled back and now there's a part of the collective that's like, nope, it's definitely flat. There's a dome and all this stuff, right? And I look, it's all the matrix. And as far as I'm concerned, those different constructs are up for us to look into, for consciousness itself to redistribute its awakening and its awareness, and to unfold and to unpack ideas and to have conversations about, where we come from and how this whole universe operates. And so I don't poo-poo it. I don't judge it. I have no mind about it. When I ask deep inside, I get that it's round. But I also get that the reason why there's all these different perceptual lenses about it is because consciousness is at that crux where we are unpacking these ideas. And we're for a minute, a while ago, we thought it was flat. Well, let's come back to that. And now we've got more ideas around that. And let's see how these all fit together. And, and there's a separation on one hand, yet on another hand, there's like, how can all of these constructs exist at the same time and be real at the same time? And what is real for you is what you choose. And again, what the premise of the show is intending to share is ultimately where love is at the root of it, whatever it is, where love is given the right of way, that is what and where truth is. So it doesn't matter, honey, if you're flat or if you're round. I'll dip my chocolate into your peanut butter. What if they can both exist? What? Yes, we're multidimensional, yo. This whole thing of trying to fit of real, this whole idea anyway, of that it's got to be A or B, honey, that's the matrix. This is so stifling your multidimensional capacity to stick to, not even to stick to constructs, because I understand there's truth, right? That's what we're talking about. What is real? What is truth? Yet where we get stuck, where we can get stuck is thinking other people then are wrong, is not allowing other people their truth. There's a multidimensional calibration that happens when you allow yourself your truth and when you allow other people their truth. That's the peanut butter and the chocolate coming together, okay? Now, if you're old enough, you'll remember in the 80s, for the Reese's Pieces, they would have these commercials of this like hot chick in little shorts on roller skates down at Venice Beach. And she's like eating a chocolate bar. And some like hot dude in a convertible drives by and like she trips and like her chocolate accidentally goes into his, like he has the open jar of peanut butter driving a convertible. Of course, right? On Venice Beach, anything is possible. She trips and her chocolate drips into his peanut butter. And then she takes a bite. She's like, oh, so it's the Reese's Pieces, right? And it's like, wow. It's like, yes, we can coexist. Yeah, we can. And what if there's some divine mastery and mystery that comes awakened through us just allowing other people to have their truths? So that's a part of it. Because again, when we fight with one another against, in these polarized realms, we are just perpetuating the reality of the binary system of this matrix. And we are solidifying ourselves within the walls, in the cage of the third dimension. And we can read a million books, and we can look at a million YouTubes, and we can make a million YouTubes, and we can write a million books. Yet ultimately, again, your profound and direct experience with your truth in your heart, with God, with love, with source, with spirit, whatever name you would give it, is that which amplifies and expands your capacity to rest in those frequencies that are not of this world. That's why we preach heaven on earth. That's the fourth dimension of consciousness. It's a heaven on earth realization. It is a realization. You become self-realized. You realize there is no separation. You realize we are one. You realize unity consciousness. You realize love is the truth. You realize giving love the truth, giving love the right of way actually creates a beautiful trajectory of greater love, of greater love, of greater love, not only for you, but for the highest good of all. And then it creates just such a beautiful wave of love that it actually levitates you, and you begin to be lifted by that love. And you really have less and less that you have to do in this world. The world begins to fold and meld around you. And again, like I said in part one, rather than you taking your orders from the matrix and being, listen to the news. I'm supposed to be afraid of that. I'm not supposed to go out past 9 o'clock. Okay. And I'm only supposed to do this. Okay. You can do that. Sure. And there's no judgment. Or maybe you never even turn the news on. And so you don't even know that you're supposed to do that. And you're just living your truth, and you're free, and you're safe, and you're happy, and you're fine because you're listening to your truth. That's the timeline split that we're in now. The love versus fear. If this is at all resonant, and I'm so grateful to have you all hop on. This was a very unexpected part 2 to part 1 that is already up at my page. So if this is in resonance, we go in deep in what is the real world. Thank you for saying hi. Oh, blessings. Amen. Everyone is allowed to live their truth. Yes. Hey, blessings, Roland. Where I be? Judah, Ethan, Morgan. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Going to hang out, and I'm just going to keep breaking this down a little bit as we go. Shoot. Okay. Take what resonates. So there's a synthetic layer to this matrix, and that is all the stories that we've been told, right? Especially, so the synthetic layer are the stories that we've been told that are rooted in fear. So maybe you've been taught to fear God, right? Maybe you've been taught to be afraid to eat a certain food. Maybe you've been taught to go swim in the ocean. Maybe you've been taught to be afraid of XYZ, fill in the blank. Yet in the world of God, of light, of love, which is a fourth dimension of consciousness, which is unity consciousness, which is where we are remembering our oneness together. In that realm of existence, your problems are not going to be the problems of the third dimension. There is a levity, there is a lightness where you will be distracted. You'll be distracted on much lighter and loftier terms, and not such heavy, hell-bound realm domains. Yet until you work out your own shadow and tar body, your own hell that you walk with in your own mind and in your own heart, until you master that and become the alchemist, become the healer of yourself. It doesn't mean you can't go to other healers or receive healing, or if you're, very much, you need to go and get your dialysis, very third dimensional aspect. It's not saying don't do those things. Do what is true to you. Yet understand that ultimately you don't need any of that stuff. It's handy in a bind, right? You break an arm, you're like, well, let's snap this sucker back in. Let's take it to the doctor, click, clack, get a little cast on there. Give it some love, bada bing, bada bang. If you're healthy, 4 to 8 weeks, you're going to have your arm back in a natural fashion. We're not saying don't go and get your arm reset if you need it. But there's an aspect of that there's so much that is fabricated, that is fed into us, that is really information that is not required, and that just keeps us distracted away from a certain truth that is the real world, where love abides, where harmony abides, where continual miraculous synchronization and flow is yours. It's not just a fancy something thing that is in a movie or in a book, but this is actually your birthright. To be and embody the divine, and that the divine be and embodied as a reflection of you in your environment, now and always. Now and always. When we abide in the past, when we abide in the stress of the future, the pain of the past, where is the now? Where does the now have a sacred container in you to show up, if even for a holy instant, to tap you on the shoulder so you can awake and go like, oh my God, I got so sucked into that. I'm really working on not giving my mom that power from the past, or that pain. I'm really working on not giving my ex, this grief. Like I'm working on healing this emotional thing, but we get sucked into the past. We get stressed out about the future. That's not real. Time is an illusion, right? That's what we know, or we're learning, or we're in consideration of. How does that work? What does this mean? And ultimately, in a fourth dimension of consciousness, what I preach here is that's the truth, is now. And to allow ourselves to be in the now. A friend of mine came over a couple years ago when I had my best friend was my roommate a while back, a couple years ago. She came over and she was like all about plans. And yeah, plans are good, right? Goals and to make plans and stuff. But she was visiting and we were chilling all here in the living room. And she got frustrated with us because she was like, okay, what are we going to do tomorrow? What about for dinner later? And blah, 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 and all this. And she like wanted to get it all on a list. And we were like, well, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Or, well, when we wake up tomorrow, let's see how we feel about it. And she was like, oh! Like she got so frustrated that we didn't have some things on a list. And and I know I'm not making fun of that, because I know there's a gift to that. And there's a skill, right? To be able to fucking make a list, to stop enough, to be in the moment enough to be like, okay, what are my objectives for this day? What, do I intend to accomplish or, be productive in? Yes. Right. Yet there's that balance of it, right? Where it's like to not have everything all figured out. So the divine inheritance that is yours naturally can come in and go boom and inspire you with that spontaneous, healing, that spontaneous, miraculous, like inspiration, that momentum, that like creativity, or that like, oh my God, that's something that perhaps would not have the space to be revealed had you had everything and every second of your life, plugged in and figured out and spoken for. So where we recognize these synthetic layers and where we've given them the right of way in our reality. Look, and here we go. And it's already ending again. Isn't this amazing? Wow, what a topic today. Thank you for hanging out. If you were guided to come in. Again, part 1 is just here at my page right before this. But so what if we have the synthetic? What if we realize we're like, oh my God, I'm living in a lie, right? All of a sudden you're Neo and you're just like, oh my God, you took the red pill and you're like, holy shit. This is all a lie, right? Or people watching the news, people that are very invested in the third dimension being a certain way and going along and then, subscribing to what they're told to do and then finding out like, oh, wait, now the mainstream is saying that might not be all the information, or we did X, Y, and Z without really looking into it. Or we believed that we were told it was safe, but now there's like these side effects and there's this weird stuff, whatever it might be. Know that you are unfuckable with, no matter what. Some friends of mine are freaked out because they've gotten the thing, so in part 1, we talk about the timeline split with, and I just for a portion, we talk about the thing that happened globally in 2019, 2020, and then the thing, the smaller V, right? So there's the that V, and then there's the that V. That then subsequently came after it. And for folks on a spiritual path are like, what do? I want to travel. I need to go to Australia to be with my friends and family. And I'm not into this. I don't really subscribe to this, but they're not going to let me travel without it, or, whatever this stuff is. And many different people coming to me just with their query about that. And what I have been guided to channel and offer is that ultimately what is going to turn any Frankenstein bubble of light aspects where there may be fear around that, but also people like saying, well, I kind of need to do it because I need to go and visit my family, or I need to travel, or whatever, or my job, whatever, right? But understand that the real thing that turns on any inappropriate mechanisms in anything that we put into us, whether it's this current thing or food, alcohol, anything, is your mind about it. If you have fear and if you buy into the synthetic reality that is driven by fear in the matrix, well, you are feeding into it and it will continue to feed into you. And that fear is the optimum value that activates the ingredients. This is, and I'm not a doctor, and I say this in a bubble of light. This is just what I've channeled for other friends and what I'm sharing here. It's coming out. I'm guided to do it. That it's only fear, that your mind is your biggest friend in this way. To keep your mind in alignment with God, with love, with trust, especially if you've gotten the thing and all of a sudden you're going, oh, fuck. Am I going to turn into a zombie? It's like, honey, if you keep your heart with God, if you keep yourself in a frequency of love and light, nothing can fuck with you. And that's the point, is no matter what they inject people with or what is put into the system and the air or the food. Now, granted, of course, we're intending to live heaven on earth and not live a polluted lifestyle and to be as one with nature and this planet. Ultimately, right? We're remembering the ways of life in that way. Yet, to think that something outside of yourself can really have that kind of power over you, that's level one of learning, right? How to not give your power away and where to place your intention and your awareness. Because what we know, where we place our awareness is going to make something grow and amplify it. So if I'm afraid of something, now I can choose not to get the thing. I don't need to judge it, but I also don't need to be afraid of it. If they roll out and they make everyone get this, like say there's some weird, like George Orwellian, right? Like, thing. And it's like, it's a mandatory, all the spiritual people are just going to be like, look, it's not real. And it's only if you give your attention to it and buy into it, into your fear, that's actually what clicks it on and in and plugs you into the matrix. And so it's all just mind. It's all fear, but you mastering your mind, which ultimately at the root of it is you healing the grievances and the pain of your past, is what befriends that, is what helps to amplify that. Because as long as you're walking with that war-torn memory within you, that is what you're going to perceive. Those are the filters you're going to see out of, and there's going to continue the destruction and the binary system of love versus fear, of the tug of war, of right versus wrong, of shame and blame and fear and all that stuff. And where we're moving is into the realm of love and only love. That's the fourth dimension of consciousness, where it's just love, values of love. And not that hard love versus fear, right versus wrong thing. And so where you recognize the simulation, put on your Jedi goggles is what I offer. Is like, put on your headset. Remember in the first, if you're old enough, go watch it. If you're not, the very, 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 very first George Lucas Star Wars, right? When Luke Skywalker has to go hang out with Obi-Wan and Yoda, and he's got the blinder on, and he's got to use the lightsaber to feel the Force, to intuit it. Again, this is where all the five senses come together, and you have your sixth sense, your intuition, and your telepathy. You're going beyond this world. It's not just what you can see, touch, taste, blah, 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 that's real. When you open your heart and you awaken to love, into what is beyond this matrix, that's the real genuine way out, is to go into the heart, not just to skip into a higher dimension. If you don't go through the heart to get to those higher dimensions, is it really real anyway? Is it really real anyway? So where you bump into those blinders, put your Jedi goggles on to see in this kind of matrix weather. Distractions, sickness, thinking the body is real take up so much of our time, of our space, right? And they're all stories. So as we move forward, and I know this is going to cut off here in a minute, let's resolve our issues to forgive now so that we can be released from the matrix. If the matrix is a distraction for you, I mean, ultimately, it's not a distraction once you've learned that it's not real. But as long as it's real, it can be a very great distraction and a means of a lot of fear and debilitation. And that's why we place our awareness with God, with love, with light, with that which is in the world, but not of it, that which is beyond it, that we may be lifted, Forgive now to be released from the matrix. Otherwise, you continue playing the TikTok of the matrix upright, of wrong versus right, good versus bad, fear versus love. So put your Jedi goggles on to see in this kind of matrix weather that is rooted in a binary system. Put those goggles on that allow you to see the unifying force of love within yourself and all around. And that's what I offer, is that is where and when the real world abides. And it is in the moment of now. The moment is a portal that gains us access into the now. And the now resides in the tiny space of your heart in love. So thank you. Again, this is part 1. No, this is part 2. Part 1, just ahead of this. What is the real world? This is 4D Trinity. I am Tuesday Mae Thomas. If you are interested in what I share, go to the link tree at my bio and sign up at my YouTube. Subscribe there. If you're on YouTube, subscribe on Instagram. I can't do my interviews on YouTube yet, but I do them when I have a guest on Instagram. So you might want to double down and follow me there. I'll come back and put the link up here later on YouTube. And I have a monthly, intend it to be a monthly love letter. If you want to join the community, you can subscribe there and stay in touch for all of my offerings. So thank you all. Thanks for the love. Namaste and blessings. I pray everything I share truly serves your path of spiritual growth and sovereignty. Enjoy a blessed one. Thank you. Thank you.